Welcome, everyone. This is Alicia Babstein, the archivist here at the Oregon Jewish Museum and Center for Holocaust Education. This is the first in a new series we're launching of behind-the-scenes programs aimed at letting our community members get a closer look at our archives and our collections and our exhibitions. Today we're going to be looking at a book titled Ink and Blood. It is a book of drawings by artist Arthur Szyk. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a biographical background of Arthur Szyk, and then we're going to go through some of the illustrations in the book together. Born in Poland in 1894, Arthur Szyk is widely known for his richly detailed illustrations and illuminations of Jewish themes. He was deeply devoted to Judaism, and he created works that highlighted Jewish histories and ideals, as well as larger issues of democracy, civil liberties, and human rights. And at no time was Szyk's activism more present in his art than during the Second World War, when he produced hundreds of anti-Axis illustrations and cartoons in aid of the Allied war effort. Between 1930 and 1945, his illustrations caricaturing Hitler, Mussolini, and Hirohito, as well as other Axis leaders, would appear in books, newspapers, and magazines, solidifying Szyk's position as one of America's leading political artists of the 20th century. Szyk once said, "Art is not my aim, it is my means," and while several of his illustrated books carry no message of social justice, most of his illustrated books attempted to convey a political message. For example, his Revolution in Germany was a satire against Germany and its negative influences on Poland. The Book of Esther was his first religious tract to show Jews standing up to threatened annihilation, and in the Haggadah, he portrayed the Nazis as the ancient Egyptians of the Exodus narrative, warning a new generation of centuries-old hatred. Szyk's political art, including the pieces in the book featured today, speak to both contemporary and historical concerns and rightfully portray him as a kind of one-man army engaged in a war against Hitler's persecution of the Jews and as a man constantly advocating for civil and human rights. So here we have a piece titled Self-Portrait, and it is the frontispiece of the book. In it, Szyk depicts himself engaged in his mission as a soldier in art. You can see he's sitting there at his drawing table and he's drawing the dictators of the Axis powers. You can see Hitler is there on the table, and as he draws him, he sort of comes to life out of the paper. And if you look in the wastebasket there to the right, you can see a couple of other defeated Axis leaders, including Italy's dictator Benito Mussolini and Marshal Pétain, leader of France's Vichy government. This piece is titled Murder Inc. Hirohito, Hitlerhito, and Benito. So this was created in 1941 in the wake of the attack on Pearl Harbor. Here, Szyk has caricatured the Axis leaders as sort of deadly pirates. They're fully uniformed, they're armed, they're decked in dozens of medals. Now, if you look closely, you can see that they all have blood on their hands, and you can see that Hirohito on the left is holding a dagger dripping with blood with a tag labeled Pearl Harbor. Comically, Hitler's holding a pirate flag with a small SS charm dangling from it, and Mussolini is there on the right. Here we have a piece titled Antichrist. Now, while most of Szyk's depictions of Hitler are caricature, and this is of course too, this really is Hitler as the personification of evil in a way that Szyk's other images of Hitler are not. You can see in this image that his eyes have skulls in them. The scene surrounding him is filled with Nazi soldiers and manacled prisoners. There's piles of skulls. It's all war imagery. And though most of Szyk's pieces are primarily visual representations, he does sometimes include text. Now, if you look closely at this one, in Hitler's hair you can see the word "Vae Victis," which is Latin for "woe to the vanquished ones." And in the upper left-hand corner there you can see a skeleton waving a small banner with text that loosely translates to "Today Europe, tomorrow the world." This piece is titled He Who Rules by the Sword, with subtext that reads, "The world has denied me Lebensraum, I shall destroy the world." So this concept of Lebensraum is a practice of settler colonialism which was popular in Germany from the late 1800s, maybe 1890s, all the way through the 1940s. And so this became very, very popular during Hitler's reign, of course, as he used the concept to justify Germany's desire for expansion into Central and Eastern Europe, and presumably into the rest of the world as well. This is a caricature depicting that because he had been denied the world, he was going to destroy the world. So this is one of my favorites, and this is titled, If We Don't Destroy That Team, We Are Doomed. Now this image depicts the fear in the Axis leaders as they're overshadowed by the heroic image of Colin Kelly and Meyer Levin. So these were two soldiers who were among the first to fly bombing runs against the Japanese Navy following the attack on Pearl Harbor. Colin Kelly flew several of those runs, unfortunately being killed on December 10th, 1941, when his plane was shot down. Meyer Levin flew nearly 60 combat missions, and he has been credited with being the first American to destroy a Japanese warship. This is called My People, Samson in the Ghetto. It's also known as the Battle of the Warsaw Ghetto. So the Nazis constructed the ghetto in 1940 to confine the city's Jews, and at one time it held more than 400,000 people. On April 19, 1943, the uprising began after an order to liquidate the ghetto came through. In this image, Szyk is memorializing the Jews who fought and resisted during that 3-day uprising. The image contains male and female fighters, young and old. There's a defeated SS officer lying on the ground with his helmet and guns strewn uselessly around him. Armed Jews populate the background, which includes a glimpse of the ghetto's infamous wall, and one fighter proudly holds a Zionist flag. Now, Samson is there in the center, and he's holding Himmler's order of extermination. So Samson refers to the biblical figure in Judges, which explicitly links Warsaw's Jews with Samson, who kills his Philistine oppressors even while knowing that he will die too. And Szyk inscribed words on all 4 of the decorated borders with the phrase, which is also biblical in nature, "To the German people, sons of Cain, be ye damned forever and ever, amen." Here we have what in this book is titled America, Democracy at Work. Now this actually appeared on the cover of Collier's on Labor Day of 1942 during World War II under the title of Arsenal of Democracy. So American manufacturers supported the Allies with warplanes, ships, tanks, and arms even before the US entered the war in December of 1941. So this image is celebrating our nation's wartime productivity. You can see on the right there is a snake wrapped around the column. So his head ominously kind of hovers over the head of one of the steelworkers there, and his back is lined with swastikas. So the purpose of that imagery is to remind readers of Collier's at that time that American manufactories were essential to the Allies defeating the Nazis. So this last piece here is just one that I find interesting. It's titled St. Patrick Will Have to Do It Again. So according to legend, the patron saint of Ireland chased away snakes into the sea after they began attacking him during a 40-day fast he was undertaking on top of a hill. So in this image, St. Patrick is there holding his staff. He's sitting atop a hill of snakes, several of whom have the heads and faces of the dictators of the Axis powers. And in the edges there around that mountain, you can see little ships that appear to be sinking into the ocean, sort of making it appear as though St. Patrick can just chase the snakes, i.e. the dictators, into the ocean and solve all of our problems. Of course, he did not do that. I just find this image interesting. Okay, that wraps up this week's tour through the OJMCHE archives. Join us next time as we continue our behind-the-scenes look at our collections.